Welcome. This is Residiva. I'm sharing a recording of a casual Skyrim playthrough using a mod list I built. My profound thanks to all the mod creators who have made this game a crowdsourced treasure. I hope you enjoy. I'm going to try the jail one more time.
There are some that say the Dark Brotherhood is better and stronger than ever, that they've made Dawnstar.
I don't see Branche.
Either I'm drunk, or he's massive. Fear not. Come dragon or giant, we'll be ready. Word is spreading like dangerfire. Great leaders and vanquished. You have truly saved us all. All hail the Dragonborn.
Okay. I can't talk to CB. I'm not able to talk to CB. And I don't see Branche. So I'm going to complete these quests. Well, there's no real reason to complete them. I'm just leave them there for now. See if Spread the Love ever actually if Book of Love ever finishes.
You can take a bullet.
I'm the brewmaster around
So
here.
any shop owner.
I'm quite busy. Need something, or can I get back to work?
Don't ask me how I know this, by.
Good.
Okay, I'm
Now
looking for
maybe I
someone
can get
else.
back to work.
Hey, don't look at me that way. Who are you to judge me?
What way?
Beautiful baubles and
Did see
gleaming
Draylen out here
gemstones
wandering
over
around.
here.
At one point, he did offer me the quest once, and I
Mountains. It always felt
told him I
familiar somehow.
didn't want to deliver his mead.
Buying and selling fine jewelry here.
There's another vendor that should be right here. She's not. Alright. See if we can find either of them in here. Other than that,
If
we
you've
might
got the
just
coin, you've come to the right place. Pull up a seat.
decide the rest is done.
My skill in battle is unmatched. Fortunately for you, that skill is what you need.
I guess people don't start drinking this early, huh?
Ours is to smile at your passing.
There she is.
My food is the best in all of Skyrim, always as fresh as the day it was collected.
How do you keep the food so fresh?
I picked up a trick from a butcher in Elenir, a small town over the border in Hammerfell. He showed me a way to grind up ice wraith teeth and use it as a preservative. Keeps everything cold and fresh, but only for a limited time. I'm always looking to replenish my supply, so if you ever come across 5 of them, I'd be more than happy to take them off your hands.
Okay, I'll find some.
Thanks. I was actually worried I'd run out.
Alright. Oh, yeah, I've got 0. I
Be
use
careful
them for
looking for
alchemy.
those teeth. Those little bastards are dangerous.
Yeah, they are. Okay.
Working at the Riften fishery is tough, but I put some coin in my pocket.
Hey, don't look at me that way. Who are you to judge me?
Why are you standing in front of doors accusing people of things they aren't even thinking of doing?
I'm the brewmaster around here. What you want? You look like you could use a drink. What do you say to some cheap meat? I'm selling the best meat in town for cheap. Interested? No, no, friend. You got it all wrong. I'm not selling cheap meat. I'm selling good meat for cheap. Black briar meat. I'll sell cases of it for half of what the inns and taverns pay through the meadery. All I need is someone to deliver it for me. If anyone saw me leave Riften, they get suspicious.
What kind of delivery?
I need someone to take this small keg of Blackbriar mead to Wilhelm at the Villamur Inn in Iverstead. Drop it off, and he'll trade you something for the delivery. Keep it as payment for the legwork. Oh, and if you bump into Indarin from the meadery, keep your mouth shut. He'd write us out in a second.
Alright, I'll do it.
Good. Now get going. Remember, keep this to yourself.
I don't like either Indarin or, what's her name? Maven, so I'm just gonna bring it to Iverstead. I do like Wilhelm, so if he wants mead, that's cool.
Welcome to the Villamir Inn. If there's anything I can get you, just let me know. May the gods watch over your battles, friend.
I have a delivery from Romlin.
All right, pipe down. You want the whole blessed place to hear you? The arrangement called for a trade. I hope you'll find this suitable. If you're headed up to the monastery, watch your step. It's a long way down.
How about an ear?
Okay, seems like a good chance to visit Autumn Watch. I'm sure a couple of bears and wolves will try to kill us on the way in, but that's the way it goes. Pretty little garden. Hello, chickens. You guys are awesome. I don't think there was a bath here, but it's raining, so... Feyfolken, Volume 2, by William Jarth. After the test had been given and Volguldak and Taxim had demonstrated their knowledge of elementary conjuration, the great sage told them that they were free to enjoy the day. The two lads, who most afternoons fidgeted through their lessons, refused to leave their seats. "You told us that after the test, you'd tell us more of your tale about the scribe and his enchanted quill," said Taxim. "You've already told us about the scribe, how he lived alone and his battles with the temple secretary over the bulletin he scripted for posting, but how he suffered from the Crimson Plague and couldn't speak. When you left off, his messenger boy had just had the master's quill enchanted with the spirit of a Daedra named Feyfolken," added Mongoldak to aid the great sage's memory. "As it happens," said the great sage, "I was thinking about a nap. However, the story does touch on some issues of the nature of spirits, and this is related to conjuration, so I'll continue. Thorbad began using the quill to write the temple bulletin, and there was something about the slightly lopsided, almost three-dimensional quality of the letters that Thorbad liked a lot. Into the night, Thorbad put together the Temple of Oriel's bulletin. For the moment he washed over the page with the Feyfolken quill, it became a work of art. An illuminated manuscript crafted of gold, but with good, simple, and strong vernacular. The sermon excerpts read like poetry, despite being based on the archpriest's workmanlike exhortation of the most banal of the Alessian doctrines. The obituaries of two of the temple's chief benefactors were stark and powerful, pitifully mundane deaths transitioned into world-class tragedies. Thorbad worked the magical palette until he nearly fainted from exhaustion. At 6 o'clock in the morning, a day before deadline, he handed the bulletin to Gorgos for him to carry to Alfie, the temple secretary. As expected, Alfie never wrote back to compliment him or even comment on how early he had sent the bulletin. It didn't matter. Thorbad knew it was the best bulletin the temple had ever posted. At 1 o'clock on Sundas, Gorgos brought him many messages. "The bulletin today was so beautiful. When I read it in the vestibule, I'm ashamed to tell you I wept copiously," wrote the archpriest. "I don't think I've seen anything that captures Oriel's glory so beautifully before. The cathedrals of First hold pale in comparison. My friend, I prostrate myself before the greatest artist since Gallia." The archpriest was, like most men of the cloth, given to hyperbole. Still, Thorbad was happy with the compliment. More messages followed. All of the temple elders and 33 of the parishioners, young and old, had all taken the time to find out who wrote the bulletin and how to get a message to congratulate him, and there was only one person they could go through for that information: Alfie. Imaging the dragon lady, besieged by his admirers, filled Thorbad with positive glee. He was still in a good mood the next day when he took the ferry to his appointment with the healer, Telemechiel. The herbalist was new, a pretty red-garbed woman who tried to talk to him, even after he gave her the note reading, "My name is Thorbad Holzik, and I have an appointment with Telemechiel for 11 o'clock. Please forgive me for not talking, but I have no voice box anymore." Has it started raining yet? She asked cheerfully. The diviner said it might. Thorbrad frowned and shook his head angrily. Why was it that everyone thought that mute people liked to be talked to? Did soldiers who lost their arms like to be thrown balls? It was undoubtedly not a purposefully cruel behavior, but Thorbrad still suspected that some people just liked to prove that they weren't crippled too. The examination itself was routine horror. Telemachiel performed the regular invasive torture, all the while chatting and chatting and chatting. You ought to try talking once in a while. That's the only way to see if you're getting better. If you don't feel comfortable doing it in public, you could try practicing it by yourselves, said Telemachiel, knowing her patient would ignore her advice. Try singing in the bath. You'll probably find you don't sound as bad as you think. Thorbrad left the examination with the promise of test results in a couple of weeks. On the ferry ride back home, Thorbrad began thinking of next week's temple bulletin. What about a double border around the last Sunday's offering plate announcement? Putting the sermon in 2 columns instead of 1 might have interesting effects. It was almost unbearable to think that he couldn't get started on it until after Alpheus sent him information. When she did, it was with the note, "Last bulletin a little better. Next time don't use the word fortuitous in place of fortunate. The words are not, if you look them up, synonymous." In response, Thorbrad almost followed Telemachiel's advice by screaming obscenities at Gorgos. Instead, he drank a bottle of cheap wine, composed and sent a suitable reply, and fell asleep on the floor. The next morning, after a long bath, Thorbrad began work on the bulletin. His idea for putting a light shading effect on the special announcement section had an amazing textural effect. Alfie always hated the extra decorations he added to the borders, but using the Feyfolk quill, they looked strangely powerful and majestic. Gorgos came to him with a message from Alfie at the very moment, as if in response to the thought. Thorbrad opened it up. It simply said, "I'm sorry." Thorbrad kept working. Alfie's note he put from his mind, sure that she would soon follow up with a complete message. "I'm sorry that no one ever taught you to keep right-hand and left-handed margins the same length," or "I'm sorry we can't get someone other than a weird old man as a scribe of our bulletin." It didn't matter what she was sorry about. The columns from the sermon notes rose like the massive pillows of roses, crowned with unashamedly ornate headers. The obituaries and birth announcements were framed together with a spherical border as a heartbreaking declaration of the circle of life. The bulletin was simultaneously both warm and avant-garde. It was a masterpiece. When he sent it off to Alfie late that afternoon, he knew she'd hate it, and was glad. Thorbrad was surprised to get a message from the temple on Loredas. Before he read the content, he could tell from the style that it wasn't from Alfie. The handwriting wasn't Alfie's usual belligerent slashing style, and it wasn't in Alfie's usual capital letters, which read like a scream from oblivion. "Thorbrad, I thought you should know that Alfie isn't at the temple anymore. She quit her position yesterday, very suddenly. My name is Vanderthil, and I was lucky enough, let me admit it now, I begged, pitifully, to be your new temple contact. I'm overwhelmed by your genius. I was having a crisis of faith until I read last week's bulletin. This week's bulletin is a miracle. Enough. I just wanted to say I'm honored to be working with you. Vanderthil." The response on Sundays after the service even astonished Thorbrad. The archpriest attributed the massive increase in attendance and collection plate offerings entirely to the bulletin. Thorbad's salary was quadrupled. Gorgos brought over 120 messages from his adoring public. The following week, Thorbrad sat in front of his writing plank, a glass of fine Torvali mead at his side, staring at the blank scroll. He had no ideas. The bulletin, his child, his second wife, bored him. The third-rate sermons of the archbishop were absolute anathema, and the deaths and births of the temple patrons struck him as entirely pointless. Blah, blah, he thought as he scribbled on the page. He knew. He wrote the letters blah, blah. The words that appeared on the scroll were, "A necklace of pearl on a white neck." He scrawled a jagged line across the page. It appeared in through that damned beautiful Feyfolk quill. Glory to Oriel. Thorbrad slammed the quill, and poetry spilled forth in a stream of ink. He scratched over the page, blotting over everything, and the vanquished words sprung back up in different form, even more exquisite than before. Every daub and splatter caused the document to whirl like a kaleidoscope before falling together in gorgeous asymmetry. There was nothing he could do to ruin the bulletin. Feyfalken had taken over. He was a reader, not an author. Now, asked the great sage, what was Feyfalken from your knowledge of the School of Conjuration? What happened next? Cried Vongeldak. First, tell me what Feyfalken was, and then I'll continue the story. You said it was a Daedra, said Taksim, and it seems to have something to do with artistic expression. Was Feyfalken a servitor of Azura? But the scribe may have been imagining all this, said Vongeldak. Perhaps Feyfalken is a servitor of Sheogorath and he's gone mad. Or the quill's writing makes everyone who use it, like all of the congregation at the Temple of Auriel, go mad. Hermaeus Mora is the Daedra of knowledge, and Hircine is the Daedra of the wild, and the Daedra of revenge is Boethia, pondered Taksim, and then he smiled. Feyfalken is a servitor of Clavicus Vile, isn't he? Very good, said the great sage. How did you know? It's his style, said Taksim, assuming that he doesn't want the power of the quill now that he has it. What happens next? I'll tell you, said the great sage, and continued the tale. Feyfalken, Volume 3. Thorabad had at last seen the power of the quill, said the great sage, continuing his tale. Enchanted with the Daedra Feyfalken, servitor of Clavicus Vile, it had brought him great wealth and fame as the scribe of the weekly bulletin of the Temple of Auriel. But he realized that it was the artist, and he merely the witness to its magic. He was furious and jealous. With a cry, he snapped the quill in half. He turned to finish his glass of mead, and when he turned around, the quill was intact. He had no other quills but the one he had enchanted, so he dipped his finger in the inkwell and wrote a note to Gorgos in big sloppy letters. When Gorgos returned with a new batch of congratulatory messages from the temple, praising his latest bulletin, he handed the note and the quill to the messenger boy. The note read, "Take the quill back to the Mages Guild and sell it. Buy me another quill with no enchantments." Gorgos didn't know what to make of the note, but he did as he was told. He returned a few hours later. "They wouldn't give us any gold back for it," said Gorgos. "They said it wasn't enchanted." I told them, I said, "What are you talking about? You enchanted it right here with that Feyfalken salt gem." And they said, "Well, there ain't a soul in it now. Maybe you did something, and it got loose." Gorgos paused to look at his master. Thorabad couldn't speak, of course, but he seemed even more than usually speechless. "Anyway, I threw the quill away, and I got you this new one, like you said." Thorabad studied the new quill. It was white-feathered, while his old quill had been dove-gray. It felt good in his hand. He sighed with relief and waved his messenger lad away. He had a bulletin to write, and this time without any magic except for his own talent. Within 2 days' time, he was nearly back on schedule. It looked plain, but it was entirely his. Thorabad felt a strange reassurance when he ran his eyes over the page and noticed some slight errors. It had been a long time since the bulletin contained any errors. In fact, Thorabad reflected happily. There were probably other mistakes still in the document that he was not seeing. He was finishing a final whirl of plain calligraphy on the borders when Gorgos arrived with some messages from the temple. He looked through them all quickly until one caught his eye. The wax seal of the letter read, "Feyfalken." With complete bafflement, he broke it open. "I think you should kill yourself," it read in perfectly gorgeous script. He dropped the letter to the floor, seeing sudden movement on the bulletin. Feyfalken's script leapt from the letter and coursed over the scroll in a flood, translating his shabby document into a work of sublime beauty. Thorabad no longer cared about the weird, croaking quality of his voice. He screamed for a very long time, and then drank. Heavily. Gorgos brought Thorabad a message from Vanderthil, the secretary to the temple, early Friday morning, but it took the scribe until mid-morning to work up the courage to look at it. "Good morning. I'm just checking in on the bulletin. You usually have it on Thursday night. I'm curious. You planning something special?" Vanderthil. Thorabad responded, "Vanderthil, I'm sorry. I've been sick. There won't be a bulletin this Sunday," and handed the note to Gorgos before retiring to his bath. When he came back an hour later, Gorgos was just returning from the temple, smiling. Vanderthill and the archpriest went crazy, he said. They said it was your best work ever. Thorabad looked at Gorgos, uncomprehending. Then he noticed that the bulletin was gone. Shaking, he dipped his finger in the inkwell and scrawled the words, "What did the note I sent with you say?" "You don't remember?" asked Gorgos, holding back a smile. He knew the master had been drinking a lot lately. "I don't remember the exact words, but it was something like, 'Vanderthill, here it is. Sorry it's late. I've been having severe mental problems lately. Thorbad.' Since you said, 'Here it is,' I figured you wanted me to bring the bulletin along, so I did. And like I said, they loved it. I bet you get 3 times as many letters this Sunday." Sundays. Thorbad nodded his head, smiled, and waved the messenger lad away. Gorgos returned back to the temple, while his master turned to his writing plank and pulled out a fresh sheet of parchment. He wrote with the quill, "What do you want, Fey Falcon?" The words became, "Goodbye. I hate my life. I have cut my wrists." Thorbad tried another tack. "Have I gone insane?" The words became, "Goodbye. I have poison. I hate my life." "Why are you doing this to me? I, Thorbad Halsek, cannot live with myself and my ingratitude. That's why I have put this noose around my neck." Thorbad picked up a fresh parchment, dipped his finger in the inkwell, and proceeded to rewrite the entire bulletin. While his original draft, before Fey Falcon had altered it, had been simple and flawed, the new copy was a scrawl. Lowercase i's were undotted, g's looked like v's, sentences ran into margins and curled up and all over like serpents. Ink from the first page leaked onto the second page. When he yanked the pages from the notebook, a long tear neatly divided the third page in half. Something about the final result was evocative. Thorbad at least hoped so. He wrote another note, reading simply, "Use this bulletin instead of the piece of trash I sent you." When Gorgos returned with new messages, Thorbad handed the envelope to him. The new letters were all the same, except for the one from the healer, Telemichiel. "Thorbad, we need you to come in as soon as possible. We've received reports from Black Marsh about a strain of the Crimson Plague that sounds very much like your disease, and we need to re-examine you. Nothing is definite yet, but we're going to want to see what our options are." It took Thorbad the rest of the day and 15 drams of the stoutest mead to recover. The larger part of the next morning was spent recovering from the means of recovery. He started to write a message to Vanderthill. "What did you think of the new bulletin?" with the quill. Fey Falcon's improved version was, "I'm going to ignite myself on fire because I'm a dying no-talent." Thorbad rewrote the note using his finger and ink message. When Gorgos appeared, he handed him the note. There was one message in Vanderthill's handwriting. It read, "Thorbad, not only are you divinely inspired, but you have a great sense of humor. Imagine us using these scribbles you sent instead of the real bulletin. You made the Archbishop laugh heartily. I cannot wait to see what you have next week. Yours fondly, Vanderthill." The funeral service a week later brought out far more friends and admirers than Thorbad Halsek would have believed possible. The coffin, of course, had to be closed, but that didn't stop the mourners from filing into lines to touch its smooth oak surface, imagining it as the flesh of the artist himself. The Archbishop managed to rise to the occasion and deliver a better-than-usual eulogy. Thorbad's old nemesis, his secretary before Vanderthill, Alfia, came in for cloud rest, wailing and telling all who would listen that Thorbad's suggestions had changed the direction of her life. When she heard Thorbad had left her his quill in his final testament, she broke down in tears. Vanderthill was even more inconsolable until she found a handsome and delightfully single young man. "I can hardly believe he's gone, and I never even saw him face to face or spoke to him," she said. "I saw the body, but even if he hadn't been all burned up, I wouldn't have been able to tell if it was him or not. I wish I could tell you there'd been a mistake, but there was plenty of medical evidence," said Telemichiel. "I supplied some of it myself. He was a patient of mine, you see." "Oh," said Vanderthill. "Was he sick or something?" "He had the Crimson Plague years ago. That's what took away his voice box, but it appeared to have gone into complete remission. Actually, I just sent him a note telling him words to that effect the day before he killed himself." "You're that healer?" explained Vanderthill. "Thorbad's messenger boy Gorgos told me that he had just picked up that message when I sent mine, complimenting him on the new primitive design for the bulletin. It was amazing work. I never would have told him this, but I had begun to suspect he was stuck in an outmoded style. It turned out he had one last work of genius before going out in a blaze of glory. Figuratively. And literally. Vanderthil showed the healer Tharbad's last bulletin, and Telemichel agreed that its frantic, nearly illegible style spoke volumes about the power and majesty of the god Oriel. Now I'm thoroughly confused, said Vongelduck. About which part? Asked the great sage. I think the tale is very straightforward. Feyfolken made all the bulletins beautiful, except for the last one, the one Thordak did for himself, said Taksim thoughtfully. But why did he misread the notes from Vanderthil and the healer? Did Feyfolken change those words? Perhaps, smiled the great sage. Or did Feyfolken change Thorbad's perception of those words? Asked Vongelduck. Did Feyfolken make him mad after all? Very likely, said the great sage. But that would mean that Feyfolken was a servitor of Shelgorath, said Vongelduck. And you said he was a servitor of Clavicus Vile, which was he, an agent of mischief or an agent of insanity? The will was surely altered by Feyfolken, said Taksim, and that's the sort of thing a servitor of Clavicus Vile would do, to perpetuate the curse. As an appropriate ending to the tale of the scribe and his cursed quill, smiled the great sage, I will let you read into it, as you will. The next place to complete is Skull Village, so I'm going to drop Kaidan off. Hey, honey. Sweet guy. Hello, kitty.
Can I get you anything, love?
Wait here.
You're just plain trouble with a capital T.
And a capital R. Capital O. Capital U. Capital B. Capital L. Capital E. And then an exclamation mark. Alright, let's get a look at what we're up against here. Edla, Wolf, Tharston, Deor, Morwen. Okay. I didn't even know there were that many people in Skull Village. Oh, you guys are all sleeping. Huh? I bet all your doors are locked. Yep. See? Very convenient.
The dragons of old have returned. By the Allmaker, I hope they will leave our village alone.
When can I go on my first hunt?
I've told the others call you a friend, but I still see an outsider.
And I'm not afraid of the beasts in the forest.
I have given my answer, little cub. I know you are brave and have the heart of a great she-wolf, but all things have a time and place.
Yes, Papa. The elders talk of great cities much bigger than our village. But why would anyone need so many buildings?
The Dark Elves of Ravenrock keep to their city, and we Skull keep to our village.
Mother worries when I walk too far from the village.
I came here to study the history of Solstheim, but it's the Skull who intrigue me the most.
How long have you been studying the skull?
Well, let me think. I suppose it's been nearly a year now. My goodness, how the time has flown.
And the skull don't mind being studied?
Well, not so far. They think I'm a bit strange, but they seem to tolerate me. In fact, they've been very accommodating, hospitable even. They seem happy to talk about their traditions and history.
You're not one of the skull?
Oh, no, most certainly not. I'm a historian. I'm here to learn about the history of Solstheim. Solstheim is a fascinating place, but we know so little about its past. There are many mysteries that remain unsolved.
What did you make of the stone structure everyone was building?
Yes, that was a most disturbing experience. But to answer your question, the architecture was strange, almost otherworldly. Given that, and the considerable power it must have taken to affect our minds so completely, it would suggest the work of a powerful mage. Either that, or perhaps a Daedra. If so, then may the Nine protect us.
A Daedra?
Powerful and malevolent entities who make their home on the plane of oblivion. Some of the more powerful among them can exert their influence within our world, and when they do, men inevitably suffer. Yes, yes, of course. Goodbye.
The day is wasting.
My son and I gather items to trade with travelers who visit the village.
Who's your son?
His name is Nicholas. He's a good lad, strong and loyal. I only wish he wasn't so eager to leave the village. I've tried to tell him that the world beyond our lands is dangerous and cruel, but he won't listen.
I could talk to him.
You would do that? I know he would listen to you. You've been out there in the wide world. You know its perils. Yes, perhaps you can convince him. I would be grateful if you would do this thing, outsider.
What have you got for sale?
Take a look. I hope that you can make my son see wisdom.
The snowberries are not yet sweet enough. I tasted one just this
If
morning.
Nicholas leaves, I fear he will never return.
Yes, I remember that
I
you
am
ate
in no
one of
mood
them
to
all
talk,
day.
outsider. One of the skull has gone missing.
Who's missing?
It is Baldur Iron Shaper. As our only smith, Baldur is very important to the village.
Did anything unusual happen around the time of his disappearance?
I do not remember Baldur acting strangely. Although now that you ask, I did see something in the woods on the day he disappeared. I saw two elves in the far distance dragging something behind them. Hunters often visit our land, so I thought little of it.
Where were they headed?
South and west. If your road takes you that way, perhaps you could search for any sign of Baldur. The skull would be grateful.
All things have a time and place.
If Nicholas leaves me now, I will be truly alone.
I've seen outsiders in our village before, but none were like you. Perhaps I'll be the first skull to slay a dragon. That would be worthy of a tale.
Your mother tells me that you want to leave the village.
That's right. I want to go out into the world and earn great glory. I want to hunt the deadliest creatures and claim vast riches. I'm wary of living in this village. I want to do something with my life other than farm, fish, and hunt deer. I know it must be hard for an adventurer such as you to understand this, but we Skal live very boring lives.
Oh, I understand. I don't really... I do understand. In fact, I'm willing to help you get started.
You are? I admit, I was not expecting to hear that.
Take this. Just give your mother some more time. 506 gold.
Yes, you're right. She still mourns for my father, and having me near brings her comfort. You have my oath that I will not leave the village until my mother is ready to let me go.
Oh, that's good.
I can see that in my eagerness for adventure, I have forgotten my duties as a son and as a Skal. You have helped me to see wisdom, and I thank you for that, Skal friend.
You're welcome, Skal friend.
I hope that Nicholas will hear your words. He no longer seems to hear mine.
Nicholas has agreed to stay.
May the Allmaker bless you with many sons and daughters, outsider.
Oh dear.
Once again, you have shown that you are a true friend of the Skal. I wish that I could give you a reward that is equal to the joy in my heart, but I don't have much to offer one who has so much already. Perhaps these will prove useful to you. These herbs are unique to the island, and their like cannot be found elsewhere. Be always warm,
Salt
Skal
pile.
friend.
Okay.
The ash from the red
Okay, Dior.
I fear what would have happened if you hadn't freed us. The Dark Elves of Raven Rock keep to their city, and we
Okay.
Skal keep to our village.
We'll talk another time, perhaps.
Perhaps.
I am called Wolf Wildblood. I am first hunter of the Skal.
What kind of game do you hunt?
Deer, bear, and horker provide most of what we need for skins and meat. Sometimes, when the wolves grow too bold and threaten the village, we must hunt them to cull their numbers.
What wisdom can you share about hunting?
The first piece of wisdom I teach to any hunter of the Skal is to ask the simple question: should I truly kill this beast? We take only what we need, and so we preserve the oneness with the land.
What is oneness with the land?
The Skal hunt not for sport, but to survive. We believe that all creatures have a right to live as they will, and when we take what we need from them, we thank the beast for its gifts. The less we disturb the land and the beasts within it, the more we respect the wishes of the Allmaker.
How long have you been the first hunter?
In days past, my brother Torkild and I would share the hunt, but that was long ago.
What happened to your brother?
I wish I could tell you. He had a wild gleam in his eye, more so than most. In my darkest times, I fear he fell in among the werebears of the glacier.
What's a werebear?
Twisted beasts, a curse of Hircine. True bears are noble and great creatures of the wild, but the Daedra have no skill for creation, so they defile the Allmaker's workings.
Defile?
I've heard tell of men who, by curse or by heart's desire, become transformed into one of those vile things. It is a pitiable fate, and one that I fear has fallen to my brother.
Do you have any idea where he might have gone?
He set off from here so long ago. It's hard to say. Could be in Hammerfell for all I know. If you happen to cross his path, be wary. He was a fierce warrior as a man. If he fell prey to his more bestial side, he could be deadly. May your hunts always bring you gain.
My mother was Skull, but she left the village and I was born in Skyrim.
Why did your mother leave the village?
A trade ship from Skyrim struck ice off the coast near the village, and the Skull took in the surviving sailors. My mother fell in love with one of the sailors, my father, and eventually returned with him to Skyrim.
Did she ever return here?
Sadly, no. She died in Falkreath, where I was born.
What do you need?
I came across a few of my mother's old things not long ago. Among them was a necklace that my father gave to her when they were married. I believe she would want it placed upon her tombstone in Falkreath, as a symbol of her undying love and the great sacrifice she made for it. If you find yourself in Falkreath, please give this amulet to the priest Runel and tell him that I sent you. He will understand.
Aww.
I don't have much to give in reward, but return to me when the task is done and I'll do what I can. Thank you, Skull Friend.
You're welcome, Skull Friend.
Mm-hmm.
It's so good to see.
Yeah, I don't want to interrupt you guys,
The others call you a friend.
walking in circles. Yeah, the werebear thing is just random. So there's no quest marker? I'd have to go cantering about, which I will be doing. So I'll meet him at some point.
Find another way around. Now. Never should have come. Not impressed.
Oh my god. A lot of more soldiers, folks.
Do you really think our threats were idle?
Stop killing! Why do you all look the same?
Is the only truth.
House of the Quintuplets.
Is the
Are the Altmer inbred? Ask yourself this question. Usually, murdering people gives me the keys I need. Well, weird. Are there 5 or 4 or... You guys are kind of piled up, huh? I don't remember how to get in here if it's not killing the dudes. Uh. Okay, one of these corpses is supposed to have a key and a note. There we go. How did I miss that before? I don't know. I just did. I'm ashamed. Handwritten note. I grow impatient with your lack of progress. If you cannot break the smith, I will be forced to find a more capable interrogator. I expect your next report to contain more encouraging results. A for Altmer.
By the Allmaker, I hope...
Just let me pick the chest.
Here to release me. Outsider, I remember you. You're the one who freed the skull from the dark spell. Thank the Allmaker that you have come. These accursed elves have taken me from my home.
Are you hurt badly? Do you need healing?
No, my wounds are not serious. I don't think the elves were trying to harm me. Perhaps they intended to frighten me. At worst, I have a few bruises to show for my ordeal.
Why would the Thalmor abduct you?
I do not know this word, Thalmor. But if you mean the elves, they were trying to learn the secrets of forging Stalrim. Their leader, an elf named Ankarian, has a map. He says that it shows the location of a hidden source of Stalrim.
Stalrim? What's that?
Enchanted ice. As hard as iron and as cold as death. Stalrim can be forged into deadly weapons, but the art is known only to the smiths of the skull.
Where can I find this Sankarian?
They have a ship. They took me there and showed me the map. You will find it on the northern coast of the island. Please, do not let Ankarian make his weapons. Kill him or let him live. But take the map from him. It belongs with the skull. I will return to the village. When you have the map, please bring it to me there. And thank you. May the Allmaker bless your days.
Sure you're cool? You look
I am glad to be free of those elves. I've never seen such greed and treachery in a creature before.
Welcome to the Altmer. You Thalmor. Oh, it's pretty.
You are trespassing here. I strongly suggest you move along.
I killed all your brothers. I have business to discuss with your leader.
You will find him on the deck. Any hint of treachery, and your life is forfeit.
Uh-huh.
Leave at once. Do not test me, or I promise that you will regret it.
I'm here about the Stalrim map.
So you know my purpose here, then? I suppose you must have found that dullard of a blacksmith. Unfortunately for you, my mission here is also a secret. To protect it, I have no choice but to silence you. Now, give me one good reason that I should not kill you where you stand.
The blacksmith won't talk. You're wasting your time.
I admit we are not making the progress I'd hoped. Perhaps you're right. This venture might be more trouble than it's worth. Very well, you have convinced me. We will depart the island shortly and seek our weapons elsewhere.
It brings me great comfort to know that Nicholas will stay. I thank you.
It is good to see you again, my friend. Did you find the elves at their ship?
Yes, and I've brought you the map to the Stalrim source.
I know you faced great danger to bring this map to me. There are no words to tell how glad my heart is. Thank you, brave one. I name you Friend of the Skull, and I will trust you with the knowledge of forging Stalrim. If you bring Stalrim here to my forge, you can use my tools to make what you will from it. Until our next meeting, Skull Friend. May your hunts always bring you game, and your crops grow tall and bountiful.
Thank you.
Over here!
It is a shame it was necessary.
Oh no.
Are the potatoes ready for you?
Ursa!
I want to roast them with some onions for their
Oh my god.
Be patient, my husband. The crop doesn't grow faster because it hears your growling stomach.
Oh my god. That was unpleasant.
It's been many winters since my husband returned to the Allmaker.
I'm sure the
But my
Allmaker
heart
has more
still
important
aches from the loss.
potatoes all sloppy.
It's good to see you again, Skull friend. By saving Baldur, you
Nearly out of coal.
I could travel to Raven Rock and purchase some more.
True, but I think that Edla would be hurt if you didn't give her the chance to train.
Who was I looking for? Tharstan.
The ash from the Red Mountain has made the land sick.
My father was a noble man, and a true Skal.
Steal your book. You were saying? Wait. Hold on. Okay. Filial Bones, Torquilled. Okay, not Thorstein. Alright. I don't know where the guy is.
Make sure that you save some wood for the fire. One of our chairs is about to break. Needs to be mended with a new leg.
Very well, I'll take a look at it.
I welcome you, friend of the Skal.
Hey, Ambar. You just watching? It is pretty, huh?
I've told you before, little cub, you're not old enough yet.
I just want to see. I promise not to get in the way of the
Okie dokie. We didn't need to look this one up.
I know you are brave and have the heart of a great one.
Okay. Thorsten is the Imperial guy? Why? I thought I exhausted all of my...
Papa.
Where is he now?
Tradition that the son of the smith take his father's place, but you have no son. Who will become Smith of the Skull after you?
It's such a little place, you think you would be able to find everybody. Oh my god. Oh, Ursa, let me just, you know, it's bugging me that people are walking on you. I hope you like grass. I don't see the Imperial guy anymore.
I hope you will give me word if you find anything about my brother.
Are the potatoes ready for eat?
You risked your life to save Baldur. Your name will be honored in our village. I'm the leader of the Skal, but it's the Allmaker who truly protects and provides.
What can I do to help the Skull?
Bandits sometimes come at night to steal our food. They think that stealing from us is easier than hunting for themselves. It will be dangerous, but if you'll deal with these thieves, we would be most grateful.
Consider it done.
Then may the Allmaker give you the strength of a great bear and make your will as firm as stone.
Oh, you have this whole place to yourself. Nice.
Met a few North.
I don't know where the dude is.
Are the potatoes
It's
ready?
been many winters
I
since
want to roast them with some onion.
Everybody's house is locked.
because it hears your growling stomach.
Perhaps I'll make an offering to the Lord. Make our potatoes ripen and surely.
He doesn't have a house of his own. Okay, he's not in the Great Hall. He's not. Alright. This is not a very big place, so,
We're nearly out of coal again.
I could travel to Raven Rock and purchase some more.
It brings me great comfort to know
But I think that Edla would be hurt if you didn't give it.
okay, I'll kill the leader of Brother Grove and try coming back.
Not good enough. Oh. And I promise I'll kill you quickly. Floofy guar. You'll regret crossing just a scratch.
Yeah, don't step in the bear traps.
Have you put those thieving bandits to the sword?
The bandits won't be a problem anymore.
Your kindness warms my heart as sunlight warms the skin on a cold day. The Skull are once again in your debt, outsider. Until our next meeting, outsider.
Yay, I got all your books! Woohoo! Final lesson. A Grothius Goth. It is time for you to leave your apprenticeship here, said the great sage to the students, Taksim and Vongeldak. So soon? Cried Vongeldak, for it had been but a few years since the training began. Are we such poor pupils? We have learned much from you, master, but you have no more to teach us? Taksim asked. You've told us so many tales of great enchanters of the past. Can't we continue to learn until we have reached some level of their power? I have one last story for you, smiled the great sage. Many thousands of years ago, long before the Cyrodiilic dynasty of Remon, and even longer before the Septim dynasty ruled Tamriel, before there was a Mages Guild, and when the land known as Morrowind was known as Resdain, and the land of Elsewhere was called Aniquina and Palatine, and the only law of the land was the cruel ways of the Alessian doctrine of Marach, there lived a hermetic enchanter named Dalek, who had 2 apprentices, Uthrak and Lorith. Uthrak and Lorith were remarkable students, both equally assiduous in their learning. The pride of their master. Both excelled at the arts of cauldron, mirror castings, the infusion of spiritus into mundus, and the weaving of air and fire. Dalek was very fond of his boys, and they fond of him. On a springtide morn, Dalek received a message from another enchanter, named Peathil, who lived deep in the forests of the Colovian heartland. You must remember that in the dark days of the First Era, mages were solitary practitioners, with the only organized consortium being the Sigics of Artaeum. Away from that island, mages seldom saw one another and even more rarely corresponded. Thus, when Dalek received Peathil's letter, he gave it his great attention. Peathil was greatly aged, and he had found the peace of his isolation threatened by the Alessian reform. He feared for his life, knowing that the fanatical priests and their warriors were close at hand. Dalek brought his students to him. It will be an arduous and perilous journey to the Colovian estates, one that I would fear partaking even in my youth, Dalek said. My heart trembles to send you 2 forth to Peathil's cave, but I know that he is a great and benevolent enchanter, and his light must continue to burn in the heart of the continent if we are to survive these dark nights. Uthrak and Lorith pled with their teacher not to order them to go to Peathil. It was not the priests and warriors of the Alessian reform they feared, but they knew their master was aged and infirm and could not protect himself if the reform moved further westward. Finally, he relented and allowed that one would stay with him and the other would journey forth to the Colovian estates. He would let them decide which of them would go. The lads debated and discussed, fought and compromised, and at last elected to let fate make the choice. They threw lots, and Lorith came up short. They left early the next morning, miserable and filled with fear. For a month and a day he tramped through the forests until into the midst of the Colovian estates. For some planning, some skill, and much assistance for sympathetic peasants, he managed to avoid the ever-tightening circle of the Alessian reform by crossing through unclaimed mountain passes and hidden bogs. When at last he found the dark caverns where Dalek had told him to search for Peathil, it was still many hours before he could find the enchanter's lair. No one appeared to be there. Lorith searched through the laboratory of ancient tomes, cauldrons, and crystalline flutes, herbs kept alive by the glow of mystic circles, strange liquids and gases caught in transparent membranes. At last he found Peathil, or so he presumed, the desiccated shell on the floor of the study, clutching tools of enchantment. Scarcely seemed human. Lorith decided he could do nothing further for the mage, and began at once the journey back to his true master, Dalek, and his friend Uthrak. The armies of the Reform had moved quickly since he passed. After more than one close, near encounter, the young enchanter realized that he was trapped on all sides. The only retreat that was possible was back to the caves of Peathil. The first thing to be done, Lorith saw, was to find a means to keep the army from finding the laboratory. That, he found, was what Peathil himself had been trying to do, but by a simple error, even an apprentice enchanter could recognize, he had only succeeded in destroying himself. Lorith was able to take what he had learned from Dalek and apply it to Peathil's enchantments quite successfully. The laboratory was never found or even detected by the Reform. Much time passed, In the 480th year of the First Era, the great Aiden Dereni won many battles against the Alessian horde, and many passages and routes that had once been closed were now open. Loreth, no longer young, was able to return to Dalek. When at last he found his way to his master's old hovel, he saw candles of morning lit in all the trees surrounding. Even before he knocked on the door and met his old fellow student, Uthrak, Loreth knew that Dalek had died. "It was only a few months ago," said Uthrak after embracing his friend. "He talked of you every day of every year you were away. Somehow he knew that you had not preceded him to the world beyond. He told me that you would come back." The gray-haired men sat before the fire and reminisced of the old days. The sad truth was that they had both discovered how different they'd become. Uthrak spoke of carrying on the master's work, while Loreth described his new discoveries. They left one another that day, each shaking his head, destined to never see one another again. In the years ahead, before they left the mortal world to join the great teacher Dalek, they both achieved their desires. Uthrak went on to become a respected, if minor, enchanter in the service of Clan Dereni. Loreth took the skills he had learned on his own and used them to fashion the Balak Thurm, the Staff of Chaos. My boys, my lesson is you have to learn from a teacher to avoid those small but essential errors that claim the life of such self-taught enchanters as Peathil. And yet, the only way to become truly great is to try all the possibilities on your own. Fire and Darkness, The Brotherhoods of Death, by Unir Gorman. Brother. I still call you brother, for we share our bonds of blood, tested but unbroken by hatred. Even if I am murdered, which seems inevitable now, know that, brother. You and I are not innocents, so our benedictions of mutual enmity is not tragedy, but horror. The state of silent, shadowed war, of secret poisons and sleeping men strangled in their beds, of the sudden arrow and the artful dagger, has no end that I can see, no possibility for peace. I see the shadows in the room move through the flame of my candle. I see the shadows in the room move, though the flame in my candle is steady. I know the signs that I... This note was found where it had fallen beneath the floorboards of an abandoned house in the Nordic village of Jalenheim in the 350th year of the Second Era. It is said that a quiet cobbler lived in the house, whispered by some to be a member of the dread Morag Tong, the Assassin's Guild, outlawed throughout Tamriel 34 years previously. The house itself was perfectly in order, as if the cobbler had simply vanished. There was a single drop of blood on the note. The Dark Brotherhood had paid a call. This note, and others like it, are rare. Both the Morag Tong and its hated child, the Dark Brotherhood, are scrupulous about leaving no evidence behind. Their members know that to divulge secrets of their order is a lethal infraction. This obviously makes the job of the historians seeking to trace their histories very difficult. The Morag Tong, according to most scholars, had been a facet of the culture of Morrowind almost since its beginning. After all, the history of Resdain, the ancient name of Morrowind, is rife with assassinations, blood sacrifice, and religious zealotry, hallmarks of the order. It is commonly said that the Morag Tong then, as now, murdered for the glory of the Daedra Prince Mephala, but common assumptions are rarely completely accurate. It is my contention that the earliest form of the Tong additionally worshipped an even older and more malevolent deity than Mephala. As terrifying as that Prince of Oblivion is, they had, and have, reverence for a far greater evil. Writs of assassination from the First Era after rare glimpses into the Morag Tong's earliest philosophy. They are, as a matter of fact, as current-day writs, but many contain snatches of poetry, which have perplexed our scholars for hundreds of years. Lisping, sibilant hisses, ether's sweet sway, rancid kiss of passing sin, and other strange, almost insane insertions into the writs were codes for the names of the person to be assassinated, his or her location, and the time at which death was to come. There were also direct references to the divine spirit called Sithis. Evidence of the Morag Tong's expertise in assassination seems scarcely necessary. The few instances of someone escaping a murder attempt by them are always remarkable and rare, proving that they were and are patient, capable murderers who use their tools well. A A fragment of a letter found among the effects of a well-known armorer has been sealed in our vaults for some time. It was likely penned by an unknown Tong assassin ordering weapons for his order, and offers some illumination into what they looked for in their blades, as well as the mention of Vonura, the island where the Tong sent its agents in retirement. I congratulate you on your artistry and the balance and heft of your daggers. The knife blade is whisper-thin, elegantly wrought, but impractical. It must have a bolder edge, for arteries, when cut, have a tendency to self-seal, preventing adequate blood loss. I will be leaving Bananura in 2 weeks' time to inspect your new tools, hoping they will be more satisfactory. The Morag Tong spread quietly through Tamriel in the early years of the Second Era, worshipping Mafala and Sithis with blood, as they had always done. When the Morag Tong assassinated the Emperor Remon in the year 2920 of the First Era and his successor, Potente Verdusai Shai, in the 324th year of the Second Era. So let's see, how long did Verdusai Shai live? (2920 to 320). Oh, a good long time. The assassins so long in the shadows were suddenly thrust into the light. They had become brazen, drunk with murder, literally painting the words Morag Tong on the wall in the potentate's blood. Morag Tong was instantly and unanimously outlawed in all corners of Tamriel, with the exception of its home province of Morrowind. There they continued to operate with the blessings of the houses, apparently cutting off all contact with their satellite brothers to the west. There they continued their quasi-legal existence, accepting black wraiths and murdering with impunity. Most scholars believe that the birth of the Dark Brotherhood, the secular murder-for-profit order of assassins, was as a result of a religious schism in the Morag Tong. Given the secrecy of both cults, it is difficult to divine the exact nature of it, but certain logical assumptions can be made. In order to exist, the Morag Tong must have appealed to the highest power in Morrowind, which at that time, the Second Era, could only have been the tribunal of Almalexia, Sothisil, and Vivec. Mephala, whom the Tong worshipped with Sithis, was said to have been the anticipation of Vivec. It is not logical to assume that in exchange for tolerance of their continued existence, the Tong would have ceased their worship of Mephala in exchange for the worship of Vivec. The Morag Tong continues, as we know, to worship Sithis. The Dark Brotherhood is not considered a religious order by most, merely a secular organization, offering murder for gold. I have seen, however, proof positive in the forms of writs to the Brotherhood that Sithis is still revered above all. So where, the reader asks, is the cause for the schism? How could a silent war have begun when both groups are so close? Both assassins' guilds, after all, worship Sithis, and yet a figure emerges from history who should give those with this assumption pause. The Night Mother. Who the Night Mother is, where she came from, what her functions are, no one knows. Karlovac Townaway, in his generally well-researched historical fiction 2920, The Last Year of the First Era, tries to make her the leader of the Morag Tong, but she is never historically associated with the Tong, only the Dark Brotherhood. The Night Mother, my dear friend, is Mephala. The Dark Brotherhood of the West, unfettered by the orders of the Tribunal, continue to worship Mephala. They may not call her by her name, but the Daedra of murder, sex, and secrets is their leader still, and they did not, and still do not, to this day, forgive their brethren for casting her aside. The cobbler who met his end in the Second Era, who saw no end in the war between the Brotherhood and the Tong, was correct. In the shadows of the Empire, brothers of death remain locked in combat, and they will likely remain that way forever. Ooh, smelly. Alright, I don't see him. Maybe in our wanderings we will find the place, or I think this is the cause.
Be patient, my husband. The crop doesn't grow faster because it hears your growling stomach.
He can make our potatoes ripen as surely as he makes the snow.
Okay,
I'm sure the Allmaker has more important concerns than your potatoes, Oslop.
Go to Falkreath and deliver. Deliver the amulet.
Word is the College of Mages is back to normal.
Okay, it's a guards convention, huh?
Need something?
At least you guys look different.
Good to see Skyrim still has such fine people. You give an old man hope. Kust is responsible for the cemetery here in Falkreath. I take care of the shrine.
Morwen of Skull Village sent me to ask a favor of you.
Morwen, you say? Now, there's a name I haven't heard in a long time. Left to join her mother's people on Salt time, as I recall. I knew her parents quite well, you know. Bera and Ulfar were good people, very much in love. Now, what can I do for young Morwen?
She wants this placed at her mother's grave.
Ah, yes, Bera's silver necklace. It was a wedding gift, and she rarely took it off. I'll be glad to oblige. What a touching gesture, to display the symbol of her devotion in such a way. Tell Morwen I'll be happy to grant her request. I'm sure it will bring joy to her mother and father as they walk in Asterius. War is not new to Falkreath, Rebel. Just stand and ask. Interested to see that.
Yeah. Okay.
My mother was Skull, but she left the village and I was born in Skyrim.
I'll agree to your request.
You've brought warmth to my heart, outsider, and I'm in your debt. Please, accept this as a token of gratitude. Once again, you've proven yourself an ally to the Skull.
Okay, I wonder if a cat got to Imperial Dude or something. He's gone. Alright. I'm gonna try cantering around the glacier for just a little bit. See if I get attacked by werebears.
Time to end this flipping game.
Yeah, it might be them. Well, they can't get up here. Okay.
Someone there?
Okay, that's not good. That's way too many werebears, folks. But at least I'm getting one-handed skill. Wow, you guys are jerks. I stink, so covered in werebear blood. Racine is the huntsman and father of man-beasts. He's the guardian of were creatures. If you're a follower, you have improved attacks against weakened targets. The tenets are to slay the living in open combat, especially those stronger than you. Live as a werewolf. Prey in the wild. Those skilled in light armor are most deserving of my favor. this is it's a gnarly place. Yeah. Flipping. Oh. Make sure those little suckers didn't disease me. Oh, I'm just a little cold. I'm fine. Alright. I've tried to find the guy. We just discover this cave, whatever it is. And I'll head on to the next place. It is the next place. Yeah. Shrine to Oreo. Nice. Nice place to pray. Hello, bunny. Alright, this one's random. We looked quite a bit for Tharstan, didn't find him, so we'll come back later. Solitude is next. Orion's notes on the tools of Kaidan. Of all the relics of Tamriel, the ones I should most like to see are the tools of Kaidan. The ancient tonal dwemer architect Kaidan used the relics in order to instill the heart of Lorcan into the Numidium In the Third Era, the Nerevarine gathered the tools together to thwart Dagothar from raising Akulakan, the second Numidium, and in that event, Keening was lost, to later be cast out of Morrowind in a great eruption of Red Mountain that followed. The remaining 2 relics were entrusted to Lord Vivek upon the Nerevarine's departure from Tamriel, and stayed in his care until the fall of Vivek City and the disappearance of Lord Vivek. The city was destroyed as the Ingenium, a massive rock that was cast at the city by Sheol Gorath ages prior, crashed into it when Vivek vanished from the city. After the events of the Red Year and the exodus of many Dunmer, the artifacts also migrated, but to where I am unsure. They may well have been lost forever, but to find them would be fascinating to say the least. Rumor has it that a Hlalu caravan carrying some precious cargo was seen headed from Morrowind via Windhelm, but I cannot be certain as to whether this is related to the missing relics or not. Thanks for watching. Wishing you found family, creative hobbies, a hot bath after a long day, and food you love as much as Saleya loves apple pies.